Hello and welcome to my countdown of the top 50 tracks from video games released in 2023. A quick spoiler warning before we begin. This list has no restrictions. It will include late game areas, final bosses, credit sequences, so all that is on the table. If you consider the music to be a spoiler, you should not be watching this. However, I will at least be staying away from all mention of story. There will be no story spoilers in this video. The only rule to be on this list is that the song must have been added to the game or released alongside the game in the year of 2023. Finally, please remember that I am just one individual judging these tracks. I did not get around to playing every single game and DLC campaign that released in 2023. So feel free to drop your own noteworthy songs in the comments. Without further ado, here's number 50. We're kicking things off with this track from Hi-Fi Rush. Let's hope this works. Hi-Fi Rush as a whole has a very high adrenaline soundtrack. It's fueled by rock and roll. Some of the boss fights even choose to use licensed music from established rock artists. However, there's an option to disable these tracks for streamer mode if you're looking for something more copyright friendly. This particular track from Hi-Fi Rush happens at a point in the game where you're gaining confidence. This is signified by the way that the song plays with amplifier sound effects. In other words, you're really getting amped up for this moment. The percussion also serves as a driving force behind that motivation. And towards the end, the song adds background vocals for one final burst of energy. It was ultimately that final push from the song that kept it on the list at spot number 50. At number 49 is the Fire Temple, specifically Phase 4, from The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. This song leads with a jazzy chord progression that you can hear being played on the organ. My favorite part of the song is when we hear the combination of higher pitched keys on the piano reverberating against sustained strings. This is reminiscent of how the Fire Temple itself is a large open space through which a lot of sound could be expected to echo. It makes sense that the Gorons built such an establishment because they're such bulky people themselves. You can also hear this bulk reflected in the use of timpani. And of course, throughout this whole dungeon you are banging on gongs, and they make sure to work that instrument into the music itself. It's absolutely my favorite dungeon theme from Tears of the Kingdom. Number 48, 16 Strikes from Baldur's Gate 3. This is one of the better battle themes in Baldur's Gate 3 in my opinion, specifically because of its use of the horn as an ostinato in the background. It has a grand orchestra backing, but then again so does the rest of Baldur's Gate 3. One other quality of this song is that I feel it does a really great job of knowing when to release the tension created by that horn ostinato and fall back into some quieter moments. It's that sort of variety in dynamics that allows the song to stand out. If it was loud and booming all the time, it wouldn't be nearly as ear-catching.
I wouldn't touch that. Way too much for you.
At number 47, The Throne, Red version, from Stray Gods the Role-Playing Musical. A bit of context for those who don't know about this game, Stray Gods has 3 versions of its soundtrack. During each song, you're given 3 branching options, which impact the style of music and the plot. For this song, I chose the red version, which is the version you get by choosing branches that line up with the protagonist's kick-ass trait. This particular song starts out with two singers separately singing about their impending meeting. You have Persephone, played by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, and Orpheus, played by Anthony Rapp. About 3 minutes in, their lines start to overlap in a wonderful harmony. What makes this song a bit lower on the list is that there is a long dialogue stint in the middle where the music goes quiet. However, there's a huge payoff at the end of it, and it's comedic gold. I'll just let that part speak for itself.
Do, 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 loop it. Do, do, do.
At this point, the funk rises off the charts. Anthony Rapp proves to be a very competent singer during this section as well.
I was told, didn't know that it was all a game. I didn't think that he would do it. Then Eurydice was gone.
At number 46, The Library from Disney Illusion Island. This track uses a sweeping orchestra to evoke that classic Disney movie feeling. The melody alternates between brass and woodwind instruments so that each section of the orchestra gets a chance to shine just as it would in those classic movies. The backing consists of crescendos and arpeggios on string and mallet instruments. This punctuates the plucky spirit of adventure embodied by these classic characters. On one side note, parts of this melody remind me of the early game in Kid Icarus Uprising, but happier, and I would say that's a good thing. At number 45, At Your Back from Octopath Traveler 2. This song is the equivalent to Determination from the first game. It's softer and it plays during more emotional moments in the game. To accomplish this feat, there is build-up from acoustic guitar and piano, leading right into the same melody repeated with a full string orchestra. It's the perfect approach to accentuating these scenes because it works the same way that a sad emotion would. It starts out, maybe you're trying to hold it back, but at some point, it all comes flooding out. The use of a guitar with a higher timbre to accompany the string section helps keep that instrument from being drowned out. It helps the song to feel intimate, while also keeping it driven by melody. Number 44 is The Cosmic Wheel from the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. I don't think I need to overly explain this one, because if you listen to that opening piano, it's transcendent. The song just keeps going, using a blend of metallic synths to create an air of introspection about the journey that you've been on up to that point in the game. The song eventually takes a lower volume, goes into low pass, and uses rolling piano chords just to help you feel at ease. I believe that the way the synths keep rising and overlapping with each other manages to encompass the idea of the universe expanding, taking an interstellar journey, as this game does take place in the reaches of space. Number 43 is the Pedal Isles from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. While it's one of the more simplistic tracks on this list, and relaxing tracks don't tend to make it higher up on my lists as I tend to prefer more upbeat music, this one did something impressive enough to land on my list. When you usually enter this area, you will hear tropical instrumentation like a ukulele and steel drums, and it creates a very relaxed vibe. It is strong at what it does. But when you get near Bowser Castle, much of the instrumentation fades and is replaced by a synth. The piano and woodwind stick around, and the combination creates an air of mystery and a threatening aura. The piano ostinato from the original composition changes slightly. It ends a half step higher up to create more of an impending tone. So the fact that this composition works on two different fronts is what lands it at number 43 on this list. Number 42 is the newly added song for the staff credits in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pack. This is a medley which remixes the credits from Super Mario Kart and all the tour tracks that were added to the game. Each uses Mario Kart 8's signature jazz style to offer a bright and energetic experience. For different sections of the medley, this means different things. Some sections put heavy emphasis on piano, while others, like Ninja Hideaway, put more emphasis on the bass guitar. This medley is lower on the list because I feel that as a medley, it's not the best. I feel like the transitions between songs had room for improvement to help make the whole thing feel more cohesive. However, because each of these rearrangements is really good in their own right, I could not leave it off this list. Number 41 is Mipha Court from The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. This is a rearrangement of Mipha's theme from Breath of the Wild. I think most people are aware of how Mipha's name, and thus her theme, is based on the solfege sequence Mi-Fa, which we hear in the flute for this new arrangement. The arrangement is sparse, using few other instruments as backup, but it matches perfectly with the serenity of the location in which it plays. It also conveys the emptiness that one can experience when a loved one is gone. Number 40 is Together in the Moonlit Forest, the main theme of Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. The full version of this song opens in a more mysterious way, telling us that we don't know what dangers the forest might hold. When we reach the vocal section of the song, we find out it's being sung in Irish. The choice in a softer vocal tone makes a lot of sense for a game that stars a timid child. Over the course of the 5-minute song, it builds up towards a grand finale with all sorts of sweeping strings, harps, and other instruments. This is one of the few songs on the list that actually uses a 3/4 time signature to give it a waltz tempo. I'd also like to draw attention to how the instrumentation and the time signature itself is like the pattering footsteps of forest creatures, which in this case happen to be demons. That could also explain why they decided to use a slight distortion effect on the vocals. While it may be pleasing to the ear to listen to, it's enchanting in the same way that a Greek siren would be. Their goal is to lure you in. Number 39, The Brightlands in the Daytime, Octopath Traveler 2. When you first exit onto the Brightlands map, you'll hear sparse piano. And it's played very well. The notes skip along just as one might through an open field of flowers. However, the song eventually approaches its apex. You'll hear a downward crescendo from the harp, cueing a whole slew of strings to join in. This song is accented by twinkling sound effects and reverberating cymbals. All in all, it's just a pleasant-sounding, immersive experience that will let you fully take in all there is to see on this new continent of Octopath Traveler.
You shouldn't have come here, and I sure ain't in the mood to make new friends. Go
We return to the Stray Gods soundtrack, this time with a song from the blue version. Challenging a Queen is number 38. You'll hear blue version songs in Stray Gods when you make choices in story branches that tie to the protagonist's clever trait. These songs take on the jazz genre. For this particular song, the percussion puts in a lot of work during the introduction. At one point in the song, Persephone is making a threat, and the piano that accompanies this threat is particularly great.
Maybe you don't know who I am. Maybe you don't know who I am.
By the end of the song, protagonist Grace, played by Laura Bailey, has worked the crowd to bring in a choral section. All instrumentation returns at full force. Persephone sings in a lower register while Grace is in a higher one, and they complement each other beautifully. This would have to be my favorite jazz song from the Stray Gods soundtrack. Number 37, Big Betrayal from Splatoon 3. This song was added to the game in 2023 in commemoration of one of the Splatfests. It actually follows this entire lore in universe about how the music groups function. See, there's this entire backstory where Big Man guests on a Squid Sisters track under an alias, ENBGM, which is really just an anagram of Big Man, and then the Fry and Shiver find out about it, and so then he turns an argument they have about his big betrayal into this really catchy song. It's a great follow-up to my favorite song from last year, Till Death Do Us Part. He just brings the big beats back in full force. Right before the chorus of the song, you get this 3 beats in succession, which really hits on Splatoon 3's theme of, well, the number 3. They really went full force with the number 3 in Splatoon 3 by having an idol group that consisted of 3 members, by bringing back Agent 3, by doing all sorts of stuff like that, and this song is no exception. Coming in at number 36, a sensational city, namely the daytime variant, from Octopath Traveler 2. It's easy to recognize what's become a typical Octopath approach to creating a melody-driven track. It starts by playing the melody on one instrument, and then brings back that same melody with another. In the case of this song, a mallet instrument takes the lead on the first go, and then the horn joins in afterwards. There is a string ostinato playing in the background that perfectly embodies the hustle and bustle feeling of a large populated area. It really helps to set the tones in, say, a 1920s type time period. This theme stands out to me as being more energetic than most town themes in the Octopath series up to now. I believe this is a good choice for the city theme because in these largely populated cities, there's always a lot going on. Number 35 is Down by the River from Baldur's Gate 3. This song plays on the character customization screen, and if you really get into building your character, you will hear this song for a long time. And I'm here to tell you, that is objectively a good thing. The instruments are played in pizzicato, which sets the scene for an adventure in a fantasy realm. But the real star of the show, and I apologize if I mispronounce this name, is the vocalist Maria Anastasova. As she's singing the song, she has immaculate tone and inflection. She creates something mysterious and also soothing. This should not sell short the composition itself, which uses a series of descending notes in the titular Down by the River lyrics. It creates good synchronization with the theme of the song. Did you catch that sick beat drop? It came from number 34, Dance of a Thousand Suns from Sea of Stars. This is the character theme for one of the best new characters introduced in 2023. His name is Garl, and much like the character himself, his theme is full of whimsy and energy. Some of that energy is provided by the undulation of tones in the bass line. Near the second half of the song, there's actually a similarity between this song and the Fire Temple from Tears of the Kingdom that I mentioned earlier. You can hear two high-pitched tones reverberating back and forth while the rest of the melody plays out. It's a nice little accent piece that adds to the twinkle in your eye when you look at Garl and think, yeah, he's a cool dude. But really, this theme is on this list just because it's fun. It is so fun. If you can't tell just from listening to it, it's fun. Dance of a Thousand Funs is what it should have been called. Number 33 is Sand Sanctuary Zone Act 1 from Sonic Superstars. I didn't quite see as much of the hype in this song as other people did, so it still stayed on the bottom half of this list, but the more I listened to it, the more I came around. Here's 3 reasons why this song still deserves to be on this list. Number 1, it's T-Lopes. There is bound to be a strong beat and a groovy bass line. Number 2, at the end of the loop, there is a hype moment where it's just waiting for you to answer back with a whoop whoop. And number 3, the guitars keep the tempo while the horns and swirling strings sell the desert atmosphere. This is essentially a classic Sonic take on something like Sand Hill Zone from Sonic Adventure, with a lot more energy, and I am all for it. Number 32 is Seaside from the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. Since I didn't credit them on the previous Cosmic Wheel track, I want you to know that this soundtrack is done by an artist under the name Fingerspit. I mentioned this in the previous Cosmic Wheel track on this list, and I'll mention it again. There's multiple guitars that stay distinct from each other, but they don't create dissonance with each other. There are layers upon layers of echoing sound that create a wonderful air of introspection. What bumps this track up to something that immediately stood out as something to me that needed to be on this list is the use of percussion. It is one of the more percussive heavy tracks in the Cosmic Wheel, and that gives me a bit more to latch onto as a listener, since I just tend to prefer songs with more energy. This percussion has kicks that come in right at the perfect time between the second and third beats of the measure. The drums themselves also ebb in and out of the song, much like the waves crashing against the shore. It leaves space where the guitar riffs can sit, reverberate, and build. There are points in the song where the guitar really gets going, building to a higher and higher pitch. The song somehow just creates the perfect image of the seaside. It captures exactly the right vibe of being there, walking along the sand in the night sky, listening to those waves crashing, and it captures a sense of freedom like no other track on this list. Number 31 is Bard Dance from Baldur's Gate 3. I have to give the song style points for its instrumentation. It's just fun to imagine this song taking place with a gung-ho band in a bar somewhere. The flute is the standout instrument in this song, as it plays in harmony with the other instruments. But I have to give a shout out to the mandolin as well, because on the second beat of each measure, it plays a more rapid series of notes to draw your attention. This is the one song on the list that I could accurately describe as being jaunty, so I thought it deserved a place. I'm also a sucker for a good key change, and if you listen to the full version of this song, you'll be aptly rewarded with one. 30, Skybase from Sea of Stars. This one is best described as a cool groove, fueled by the computerized components that make up the environment around you. I think my favorite synths of the ones used in this song is the one that has a clickier sound that plays right before the call and response section, which, by the way, has to be my favorite part of the entire track. Hearing two instruments play the same 5-note sequence back to back makes the song somehow feel a bit more interactive, like things are actually happening around you and responding to your actions, even though this music is not a dynamic track by any means. I also appreciate the triple crash cymbals used in the percussion. At number 29, Breaking Bruno from Thirsty Suitors. Yes, this is the place where we're going to talk about him. The song's comedy did a lot to keep it on this list. The lyrics are just a ridiculous take on a Saturday morning superhero cartoon, but told from the viewpoint of an arrogant airhead. It takes a bit of time to build up in the beginning, but once the main downward progression of synth notes begins and the guitar accompanies it, it goes full force. I love the Bruno backup singers and the Go Bruno, Go Bruno, Go sections. This theme still does its job as a boss theme, with downward half steps the synth uses between chords, evoking that same threatening aura that one would expect from a boss fight. But the sheer energy, the sheer campiness, and the astonishing circumstances under which it plays keep it high on this list.
வயசுலந்தா இது ஓல்டு சிட்டி பல பேருக்கு எங்கூரு கோல்டு சிட்டி ஜொலிக்குது பாருடி செல்லக்குட்டி செல்லக்குட்டி.
At number 28, Chelakuti from Venba. This is another vocal song on the list that is sung in a non-English language, this time Tamil. The writing of the lyrics adds much to the song, as the singer, Diva, must roll R's at certain points, and it adds to the overall percussiveness. This song plays at a moment where you're gaining a lot of momentum on your cooking, so the horns help to establish a positive vibe and keep that motivation going. What really makes this song is the drums. The drum line is performed in an incredibly playful way. This is a song I could very easily find myself dancing to as a result. I also have to give a big shout out to the ending of the song, where it definitely goes out on a high note. Number 27 is Colgera Battle from The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is without a doubt the best boss theme in Tears of the Kingdom. It works in the skydiving theme because you actively need to skydive during this boss. The flute work during this boss segment is on par with that of Xenoblade 3, which is saying something if you know about the flute work in Xenoblade 3. I like how the descending note sequences on flute and piano are both shaky. Considering the high velocity winds being generated during the flight, you would naturally encounter turbulence. And of course, in the scenario in which this plays, turbulence is to be expected. But I think we all know, if we've played the game, that the epic Dragon Roost rendition with backup vocals is what solidified this song belonging somewhere on this list. Wait, is that a funky bass line? Was that an epic piano solo that ended in a glissando? I wonder where this song came from. Number 26 is a Bowser Jr. battle theme from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So what I was attempting to demonstrate with those samples is that I don't feel you get to fully appreciate this song in-game, unless you find yourself struggling against Bowser Jr., which I did not. The battle did not go on long enough for me to reach some of the more epic phases of this song. And I was so busy trying to bash Bowser Jr. on the head that I really didn't notice things like that bass line or that piano solo that kinda sounds like Bayonetta when you really get down to it. It's way more epic than Bowser Jr. has any right to be, but it deserves a spot on this list.
The revolution in your heart will guide your way, will guide your way through the dark.
We enter the top half of the list with number 25, Revolution in Your Heart, the main theme of Persona 5 Tactica. The song starts with a solid guitar riff, though what brings it down a notch is that there's a bit too much distortion for my liking. Things improve once Lynn starts singing. My favorite part is probably the pre-chorus, because of the distinct hits of percussion that do a good job of getting you hyped up for a fight. When ranking these songs, I had actually considered using the instrumental version of this song for the list. However, when I compared the vocal and instrumental versions of the song, I discovered that the vocal version had a guitar solo that was not present in the instrumental version, and that guitar solo is sick. It's the main reason that this song made the list at all. I'm amazed it wasn't in the instrumental version, because you would think that the guitar would stick around for the instrumental version, but apparently not. Persona 5 Tactica had a more monotone soundtrack on the whole, but at least the main theme that you hear when you boot up the game still has that classic Persona 5 energy. Number 24, The Journey for Truth Ends, Octopath Traveler 2. If you played Octopath Traveler, you may be familiar with the final boss theme, the battle at Journey's End. In Octopath Traveler 1, every character shared that final boss theme without question. However, Octopath Traveler 2 takes a different approach that builds on it. Octopath Traveler 2 weaves its character themes into its final boss theme for the Dawn. This version is for Temenos the Cleric, who spends his journey searching for answers. His character theme is a great fit for a detective, and I love the way it's weaved into the final boss arrangement. The way it sounds while accompanied by horns and percussion lend an eerie air to the boss fight, which is appropriate once you see what his final boss is. I ultimately limited myself to one of the 8 final boss themes from Octopath Traveler 2 for this list, and what solidified Temenos' version is the final transition from his theme back into For the Dawn. The downward progression of notes, paired with the tom drums right before the sustained strings kick in, is serendipitous. Ikari's final boss theme was a close second, and I do recommend giving that one a listen as well. That one is called The Journey for Kingship Ends. Number 23 is New Battle from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. If you've been keeping up with Xenoblade releases in the past bunch of years, you'll know that ever since Torn of the Golden Country DLC for Xenoblade 2, the battle themes have gotten increasingly jazzier. First, this extended to the base game of Xenoblade 3, but now it's faced its natural evolution as the theme of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. The piano backing is essential to this song's success, and it helps create that jazzy atmosphere. But a contributor this time is the liberal use of hand clapping. It makes it incredibly tempting to dance along, and I often do end up doing that. But more so, it's symbolic of the teamwork that is required of the characters in not only the base Xenoblade 3 game, but especially the Future Redeemed expansion. If a battle goes on long enough, you'll hear some of the sparse electric guitar segments. Those stand out more because you have to have a more intense battle that goes on for a longer period of time before you can hear it. And if the battle goes on exceptionally long, then you're treated to the final key change. It's a welcome addition to the song that makes it stand out all the more. There's a reason I had to wait until the 3rd week of December to make this list. Number 22. Battle, Champion Kirin. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the hidden treasure of Area 0. This song plays over your final challenge at Blueberry Academy during the Indigo Disc portion of the DLC. When you listen to the full track, first it sets an ominous tone worthy of a final challenge. But once that electric guitar kicks in, I am speechless. The ascending piano chords before the rearrangement of Kirin's battle theme from the Teal Mask are reflective of his discordant heart, as his character undergoes an introspective journey during this DLC. I'm also a fan of how the instrumentation keeps changing back and forth between different instruments. Sure, we have those lovely guitar and piano sections, but then it'll take a break for strings, and then another break for synths. Just like Kirin's final theme, it really runs the gauntlet. Quick honorable mention to the Unova Trainer remix that shows up in the Indigo Disc. It didn't quite make the cut for this list, but it's still pretty good. Number 21 is Gil on the Keys from Octopath Traveler 2. Some people might be surprised to see that I put a solo piano song this high on the list. But actually that's part of the reason why I put it this high on the list. It manages to enrapture me despite being nothing but solo piano. And that may be due to my own affinity for the piano. I do play it after all. This pianist had a field day, and I'm incredibly jealous. There are so many little flourishes at the end of the song, and it just makes my jaw drop every time. The song includes a rising bass line that is both indicative of the stealth that we must enlist during the section of the game in which this plays, as well as the sly nature of the character playing the piano. This is one of few songs on the list that are diegetic. It's coming from a source within the game, as a character actually is playing the piano over this section. But really, I have nothing more for you than, holy crap, this sounds good. At number 20, Trial of the Genealogy, Free Us, from Fire Emblem Engage. My personal history with Fire Emblem begins at Shadows of Valentia on the 3DS. And Genealogy of the Holy War has not currently gotten a remake. So, as someone who has never been exposed to that game until Engage, this one took me by complete surprise. There's one section that sounds reminiscent of the main Fire Emblem theme, but it takes a slightly different direction. There's also points where the backing ostinato reminds me of something out of the Zelda 2 Temple theme. I feel like this song has just the right blend of synth instruments and guitar, and there's really all sorts of accents in the background contributing to the song throughout. It's only a 1 minute and 20 second loop, but over the course of that 1 minute and 20 seconds, it is constantly evolving. If nothing else, it makes me wish that we had a Genealogy remake like so many people before me have. Number 19 is Nylon Empire from Thirsty Suitors. The game of Thirsty Suitors is a wild conglomeration of genres. The characters in Thirsty Suitors come from a mix of cultures, and the music's myriad influences are a perfect match for the game as a result. On the one hand, you can clearly hear influences from Carnatic music. If you don't know, that is a form of Indian classical music with origins in South India. Vocals for this track are provided by Priyanka Akilan, while the production on this track is the artist under the alias Mar Sky. Mar Sky's previous work includes Boyfriend Dungeon. The piece has a compelling mix of sitar and drums, as well as old-school hip-hop influences like chants and record scratches. It's a combination that just works to provide the right level of energy for wandering around the overworld. Number 18 is Bridge Island Zone Act 2 from Sonic Superstars. This is T-Lope's second appearance on the list. This time he's rearranging the work of Jun Senoue. The intro to this song makes use of sound effects that invoke the feeling of classic Sonic. There's not really much I can add about T-Lope's work that I didn't already cover in his previous entry on this list. I just happen to prefer this song, and I think it's a wonderful way to open up the game. It's a fitting track to start the adventure, one that invokes the feeling of friendship that Sonic Superstars aim to have with its multiplayer focus, while still setting the stage for some epic set pieces up ahead. I chose Act 2 over Act 1 because I prefer the direction the song takes in the second half with the chord progression. Both are enjoyable nonetheless. Number 17 is No Quarters, which was added to Splatoon 3 this year for the Chill Season 2023 update. This song is the long-awaited return of the chirpy chirps using the chiptune style. It's a high-octane piece that also has a pulsing electric guitar to keep the rhythm. It's a pretty classic, tried-and-true form for Splatoon at this point, so I don't have too many things to point out, except I do want to piggyback off a comment I saw on the video upload of this track. One commenter pointed out that there's a stripped-down instrumentation at the start of verse 2. It makes for a unique transition compared to other songs in Splatoon, because it gives the chance for the song to pause and then jump right back into the high energy. That's the key thing that lands this one higher up on the list. High energy tracks work best when they know when to pull back, and I feel like this is the first time Splatoon 3 has really nailed that part down. Number 16 is Servo Swing Spot from Disney Illusion Island, and I have two words that encompass this song. The jazz. That's in all caps, by the way. The song starts with a bass line that is best described as plump. It truly fills the space and warms the heart. Then the drums are played immaculately to offer that sensation of being at a two-step nightclub. I just want to snap my fingers while doing some sort of cringe-worthy dance to this song. At about 1 minute 6 seconds in, there's a piano breakdown with stings from the rest of the band, and it creates heaven on earth. I was so tempted to place this song even higher on this list, but its one major downfall is that it's a much shorter loop compared to other songs, and the end feels a bit abrupt as a result. But if a song can leave me wanting more as much as this, then I have no regrets with placing it this high on the list. At number 15, we have Through the Halls of History from Hi-Fi Rush. This track sees Hi-Fi Rush breaking out of its pure rock soundtrack to indulge in a bit more of a 1970s style funk. The backing from the jazz organ plays an important role in providing a chord progression that doesn't overpower the bombastic main instruments. Those main instruments are the horns and strings, and they play a call and response section, which happens to be my favorite part of the song. This song goes through a few dynamic changes as you progress in the level, and by the end of the level it's become a lot more bright and cheerful. Ultimately, this track marries the instrumentation you'd expect from both stealth missions and museum levels in perfect harmony. Number 14 is Critical Clash 2 from Octopath Traveler 2. I hope the opening seconds of this song that I played during this countdown made it very clear why this song is on the list. But just in case that alone isn't enough, let me add a few more things to say. Making a follow-up to Decisive Battle 2 from Octopath Traveler 1 is an imposing task, but it's one that composer Yasunori Nishiki was up to. Critical Clash 2 has a constant build. It uses rhythmic horns and woodwinds to give a strong sense of determination, while in the second half, conveying dread. And of course I would be remiss not to mention the percussion. Both Octopath Traveler games have masterful use of drum rolls at peak moments of the melody. This makes each go-around of a melodic phrase stand out. Not to mention, it just contributes all the more to the hype factor. At number 13, Frozen Peak, Nighttime, from Sea of Stars. Let me start by saying that the daytime version is equally epic, but that I put the nighttime variant on this list instead because of my slight preference for the piano portions in the song. Frozen Peak is rearranged from The Messenger, but this was my first time being exposed to this composition, as I have not yet played The Messenger. The game's team knew that this song was good because while you're exploring Frozen Peak, any battles have their battle theme supplanted by this theme continuing uninterrupted. The melody of the song gives the same vibe as a kung fu montage. It's fitting for this part of the game because the Frozen Peak itself is a trial that you must pass. That's also why I don't mind as much that this song incorporates sleigh bells, which is a pretty stereotypical thing for an ice area to do in a video game track. They're not the main focus of the track though, it kinda gets drowned out by that sort of kung fu vibe that the track is going for, so that's why I really don't mind it as much, and decided to put the nighttime variant on the list. At number 12, Sisterhood, from the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. If there's one thing I've learned while compiling this list, it's that Fingerspit, the game's composer, can create a compelling loop. The full version of this song is 7 minutes, but I highly recommend you check it out. It placed this high on the list for a reason. It may have a slow build, but the payoff is immensely worth it. The song plays over the climax of the game's narrative. Your character is wrestling with a lot. And I dare not spoil what any of that is, because I do feel that it's worth playing for yourself to find out. In the drums, you hear the desperation of time passing by way too quickly to process what's happening. In the piano, you hear the same keys of introspection that the game has been using up to this point. But then the soundtrack becomes more intense than it's ever been. Combining all those lo-fi synths and piano with the boom and blare of hard rock instruments. When the song reaches its peak, it employs the screech of electric guitar to make you feel the high stakes, more like an alarm blaring in your mind that something bad is about to happen. There are times where this melody feels like it's improvisational jazz, and for all I know, it could be improvisational jazz. But however the song was crafted, it is an absolute masterclass for the genre.
He betrayed us and we let him, and with their mortal souls long gone, we thought we were untouchable.
Before we enter the top 10, let's talk one more time about Stray Gods, the role-playing musical. The number 11 song from that game is The Ritual, Red version. It was very tough for me to keep this out of the top 10, and you'll hear some reasons why shortly. But ultimately what brought it down to number 11 was one nitpick from the song. There is one small portion where I was not a fan of the vocal harmonies when the singers sing ch-ch-ch-change. Something about it just sounds a little off to me. And that was my excuse to drop something out of the top 10 because this has been a tough year in music. But now onto the song's many strengths. Aphrodite's voice actor, Merle Dandridge, has a spectacular range of emotion in her singing. Her cold open is pleasing on the ears. But then later in the song, she'll take on a more authoritative tone, putting some gravel in her voice and managing to keep pitch even during that spell of anger. What lands this song this high up, however, is the section where Grace starts interjecting. The guitar riff backing up her pleas provides adrenaline. And then of course the song hits its climax when the chorus of people sing "everybody." That one word being repeated by a crowd of people in a chant during the chorus helps the song's catchiness immensely. Stray Gods was an ambitious game, and I'm not sure that it always lived up to the high expectations it had set for itself. We're talking about having an entire game that is not only a musical, but an interactive one where the player's choices impact both the music and the narrative. Unfortunately, I feel like the game as a whole fell short in many areas, but when I listen to this song, I feel that is the height of what this game was trying to do. If every song on the soundtrack was as good as this one at reaching the game's goals, I think a lot more people would be talking about it.
Recognize me with my brand new glow.
To kick off the top 10, we have No Goodbye from Thirsty Suitors. It was when I heard this song play during a boss fight in the game that I really knew I had to start paying attention to this game's soundtrack as one of the front runners for the year. First, the song takes a couple minutes just to establish the vibe. It's a slow build, but it gives you some time to focus on the fight ahead. Much like the character singing the song, it has to emerge from its shell in order to come into its true self. All the pieces of the chorus are there, but they're masked by high-pass filters, warm pads, and other such trickery. Once the verses get going, then we get this cool guitar riff on top of all of that. But of course, the part of the song that brings it home is the chorus. This is an attack piece from the boss enemy to the main character. The lyrics delivered in the chorus are stagnated into parts of 3 or 4 syllables at a time. Not only does this work to match the backing track's guitar riff, but it also emphasizes that each thing that the antagonist is saying in this song is meant to be an individual blow to you, the player character. The finale of the song uses some of the same instrumentation as Nylon Empire, which you may have heard earlier on this list. So we ultimately end up with a nice fusion of pop rock and traditional Indian music. Number 9 is Song of Hope from Octopath Traveler 2. I have to imagine the conversation when developing this song went something like this. Hey, people really liked Primrose's theme in Octopath 1. We should make another really good dancer theme. Oh, that's a great idea. Let's give Agnia a really great dancer theme. Yeah, you know what else we should do this time, though? What should we do this time? We should turn it into her final boss theme. The fact that this song is relegated to one specific character's final boss should tell you that there is something special about it. But let's go on a bit further than that. The song starts out in the key of E minor. Because of that minor key introduction, we know that we are up against a worthy opponent, and we can hear her voice singing during the song. But when we get to the chorus, the key changes to G major. Because we're in that major key, we are given the positive vibes, and we know that we are up to the task. It may be a daunting challenge, but it is one that we can overcome. The main melody gallops along while accompanied by sultry vocals on both sides. But then, not to be remiss because this is still the final boss theme, there are electric guitar and horns still lending the song an air of fight. They just take more of a backing presence on this one. I couldn't help but stop and listen in sheer joy when this song first showed up in the game. I even went so far as to cover it myself on the channel. Number 8, Lagoon City Zone Act 2 from Sonic Superstars. Let's give it up one more time for T. Lopes as he appears on this list yet again. Frankly, he just does not miss. This track is a bit slower compared to others in Sonic Superstars, but it makes up for it with funk and a full, rich sound. The track is not completely devoid of energy, however, because T-Lopes works in short horn blasts that keep the energy up. T-Lope's choice of sound font for the main melody carries a lot of weight with me. There's a twinkly sensation to it that lends a softer air to the track. At one point in the track, you'll hear a 3-note sequence repeated 3 times, but each at a different speed. This creates a solid foundation for the rhythm that allows one to get into the groove. It should also be noted that T has a good tendency to introduce new instruments at just the right time to keep the track varied and interesting. During that same 3-note sequence, at one point he works in pizzicato string instruments. But really that statement applies to the track as a whole. There are just the right moments where he works in an additional horn, an additional string, an additional synth. I suppose the best word for this track would be engrossing. Once it gets going, I become fully invested. Number 7 is Battle On, Daytime from Sea of Stars. I am a sucker for the orchestra hit when it's used well, and I am happy to say that it is used to great effect in this song, making for standout moments at the end of each phrase. The chord progression on the warm pads is also enticing. It has just the right amount of build that you would expect from a battle track. Over on the percussion side of things, it's using the classic quarter note to 8-note progression to fuel the drive for combat, but at the end of every 4th measure they of course throw in a roll just to help transition to the next phrase of the song and keep the hype going. What I find interesting about this track is that the first half focuses on a downward progression of notes and chords, while the second half brings them back up. One might say this represents the back and forth of an ever-changing battle. Regardless, it's another fun, melody-driven track in Sea of Stars that harkens back to the era it's paying homage to. Number 6 is Engage, with an exclamation point, the main theme of Fire Emblem Engage. This song is not to be mistaken for another track on the soundtrack called Engage with an ellipses. You can tell they had a lot of fun naming the tracks on that soundtrack, huh? You might be surprised to find that I chose this instrumental version of the theme for this list over the lyrical theme that plays when you boot up the game. Don't get me wrong, Fire Emblem has had a lot of good vocal themes like Heritors of Arcadia or Edge of Dawn, but this one didn't quite hold my attention in the same way. The main theme missing from the lyrical version of the song is the riff that plays at the opening. It's a note sequence that gives off a mystical aura, which is fitting because you have the emblem characters inhabiting your rings in this game, and they are more of a mystical presence, almost like a ghost. That alone might not have made the track stand out, but then by the end of the loop, that same riff is being played on the electric guitar that drives the melody, and there, it just sounds awesome. Now, of course, the main portion of the song in the middle is using the main melody of the game, which is also the main melody of that lyrical theme. It's designed to be catchy because it uses the classic pop chord progression, so naturally, hearing someone slam away at it on an electric guitar is just gonna make it sound epic. Also, here's another pro tip that this song utilizes that can help give your song a little extra oomph. Sustained high notes on string instruments. You hear them a good amount in this song, and it just helps fill the space. It can really help to make a track sound grander than it might otherwise. Ultimately, this track is on the list for its energy and bravado. I'm surprised to say that this track offers a lot more of that than the main theme to Persona 5 Tactica, since that series was established to have all those things in its main themes previously. But hey, congratulations Fire Emblem Engage, you win this round. Or do you? At number 5, we have Quiet Storm from Persona 5 Tactica's Hey DLC Repaint Your Heart. Now this is the energy and bravado that I was looking for in the base game. Most of the Persona 5 Tactica soundtrack felt like it was lacking character, especially compared to Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers. So hearing Lyn featured on a Lotus Juice track for the paid DLC campaign Repaint Your Heart was a shock. It brings back a punk vibe more reminiscent of music from Persona 3. Lotus Juice's ad-libs play a big role in keeping the flow of the song during the rap section. There are several places in the song where I can point to great harmonies, but at about 2 minutes in, my favorite of the bunch is when Lyn sings Dead Inside. This track is a combination of poetic lyric writing and outstanding vocal delivery. On the second rap verse, Lyn uses many words ending in the X sound, and ends each line holding the s as applicable. It allows her to convey a harsh attitude without straying from the intonation needed to make the song work. Combine all of this with a funk beat that only Lotus Juice can provide, and we have an outstanding track worthy of kicking off the top 5. Number 4 is the end credits theme to Pikmin 4. If you had told me that I was going to place this track in the top 5, I would have been confused. This is not my usual taste in music. It's a lot more relaxing and a lot less energetic. But over the course of the year since the game came out, I've been listening to this track repeatedly. Sometimes we all need some serenity in our lives. The song incorporates the 6-note leitmotif of the game, but expands it into an entire waltz. Strings begin to swell. One guitar plays the melody using tremolo, which brings to mind images of leaves shaking in the wind. Plucking on the harp brings to mind images of flowers blooming. Sustained strings fill the quiet air with a tranquil ambience. It makes the whole thing sound like it's coming from a classic Disney soundtrack, which is surprising considering Illusion Island came out. If you listen to the full 6-minute version of the song, you'll know it caps off with a nod to the Pikmin 1 theme, so it manages to hit that nostalgia bone in addition to everything else it does right. I'll take this time to give a quick honorable mention to the title screen music as well. The instrumentation on that version is a bit more bare, which is why I chose the end credits for this list instead, but it's still a great way to open the game. Number 3 is Normal Battle 2 from Octopath Traveler 2. I'm not sure if this is an apt word to describe a battle theme in an RPG, but the best one I can think of is sexy. The theme works in the allure of acoustic guitar, and it's all about tension and release. Some battle themes make the mistake of spending the entirety of the song building tension, only for no real payoff to happen. However, in this song, whenever tension builds, there is a payoff. One of these payoffs is the reuse of the opening stinger that you hear when you start the encounter. It happens to show up in the middle of the battle theme, and it sounds natural in its place there. Lesser RPGs would give up after the opening stinger and just have it be this random sound to catch you off guard, and then never use it again. In fact, the song doesn't settle for just reusing the opening stinger from the overworld. It introduces new stingers of its own. It's one of those many payoffs I mentioned when it comes to building tension in the song. My favorite of those newly introduced stingers is the one that happens right before the return of the main melody after it's played on an acoustic guitar. The song goes through many dynamic changes, especially in the chord progression played on the string instruments. But the melody undergoes many changes as well. It keeps the battle theme fresh for many battles to come. The second variants of songs in the Octopath Traveler games tend to be the fan favorites. Normal Battle 2, Decisive Battle 2, Critical Clash 2, and now this game's Normal Battle 2 inside of Octopath Traveler 2. I'm not sure what obsession Yasunori Nishiki has with the number 2, but if it means we keep getting bangers like this for years to come, then I wish him all the best with that obsession. Number 2 is Centomnia region, Daytime, from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. If you watched my video on soundtracks from last year, you'll know that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 did not make it to the top of that list. And this was coming from someone who was really a big fan of the soundtracks used in Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade X, and Xenoblade 2. What brought it down for me was that more of the area themes were ambient, softer, subtle, and that just doesn't quite fit my personal taste as much as the previous games, which had more bombastic area themes. I had been waiting for that type of theme to return all during the base game of Xenoblade 3, and while there were some decent area themes in there by the end, they had never reached the same heights as those from previous games. But then along came the Future Redeemed DLC. This is my favorite area theme in any Xenoblade game at this point in time. There are many parts at play. For one, you have the rolling crescendos on the piano, which not only sound beautiful for every individual note that gets played in that scale, but provide a building sense of adventure. Later parts of the song employ backup vocals, much like past Xenoblade themes like Gormott. They lend the song a grandiose energy that I haven't felt in a while. You'll hear a subtle sound from guitar, the nylon strings twinging. It gives an extra sense of rhythm to a song that's already doing a lot to give you energy. You even hear subtle touches of flute, which call back to the base game of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which focused heavily on the flute, but the flute accompaniment also flutters in a way that reminds me of the battle theme from Future Connected. And of course I would be remiss not to mention the percussion in this song. Very few area themes in Xenoblade 3 had much of a percussion line at all. Milik Meadows is a standout example, but that's the exception, not the rule. Here the percussion line employs triplets, followed by a rest. Each set of 3 consecutive beats gives you the drive to push forward, but each rest reminds you that there will be obstacles in the way. This is also reminiscent of how the song does have its softer moments. It's not always playing at maximum energy, because the area you explore in Future Connected isn't just grand, vast, and full of danger, but it's also beautiful, serene, and tranquil. This is emphasized more in the nighttime version of the theme, which I left off this list again due to personal preference, but that one is just as beautiful. It's a more stripped down version of the same melody that allows you to enjoy the world while it's at rest. As much as I could listen to this area theme for the rest of my life, this is only spot number 2 on the list. We have one more song that somehow managed to edge this out. Number 1, Encounter Elite from Sea of Stars. Congratulations, Eric Brown, aka Rainbow Dragon Eyes. You did it. You used a limited number of sound channels to evoke the feeling of a classic RPG. You took what you had in those self-imposed limits and created something that stood out despite the limitation. You put a modern spin on the music, especially in the area of percussion. Some of the drum rolls in this song are the most evocative of any song on this list. Don't think I didn't hear that sparkle sound effect at the beginning of the song that brought to mind the image of the titular Sea of Stars. It also works as a magical transition into the fight proper. You wrote a boss theme that didn't rest on any laurels. It had just the right number of changes in the melody to keep the song feeling fresh no matter how long I would stand against a boss enemy in Sea of Stars. You opened on a downward guitar progression that conveyed dread and an imposing aura appropriate for a boss enemy. But you managed to take that same loop and turn it into something more joyful. The alternating notes on string instruments evoke feelings of a horror movie that clash with the more joyful loop of that melody, but also remind us that we are still up against a threat. In the middle of the song, we have more sustained notes that transition us into a more heroic portion of the song. Having this section of the song was also nice, considering that this game utilizes action commands, and it's nice that the song serves the function of allowing you to focus on the proper timing for some of those commands so that you can do the necessary damage to the boss. And of course, my favorite part of this number 1 song is the part that it builds up to right at the end. 3 is a magical number. It's used a lot in writing and music composition, and it just makes the human brain feel good. So to hear that final progression from C to D to E that builds in such a way to remind us that we are the heroes and that we have the power to take down this boss, it creates a level of satisfaction like no other song on this list. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say that this song is a complete bop that I could be listening to on repeat. But just in case you needed to hear it again, Sea of Stars as my number 1 song of 2023. Hopefully you made it all the way up here to number 1, or maybe you just skipped ahead because you didn't care about all 50 of the songs on this list, in which case I must ask, why? What's wrong with you? All 50 of these songs were incredible. Go back and check the rest right now. And after you've done that, consider subscribing to the channel or liking the video, in case you want to see more stuff like this. If you'd like to hear the full versions of these 50 songs, there is a playlist in the description below. Where possible, I used uploads from the official artist source. It was a massive endeavor to work on, but I'm happy I did. There was too much good video game music in this year to let all of it go unnoticed. Once again, thank you to the viewers, and thank you to all the teams who put this music together.